Hey John, I'm glad we could hang out today.
Yeah, me too.
Cool. Hey John, what do you like to do for fun?
I like to play sports mostly, football
Yeah.
and stuff.
Okay. Did you see the Packer game this weekend?
Yeah, I did. It's pretty bad.
Ah, 15-1, and then lose the first playoff game. What a
Yeah.
bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey John, I was kind of wondering. I want to ask you a question. Did you like grow up, going to church? Your parents go, that kind of a thing?
Yeah, my mom used to take us to church, It's just a traditional church and mostly for Christmas and Easter.
Uh huh. That's kind of like me too. We went to a traditional church. We did go most weeks. I don't know about you, but I kind of like as a youth didn't really. I was just kind of going through the motions. I don't know. Did you find your faith to be real vibrant, or was it? What was it like for you?
I don't know. Just I kind of believed in God and, you know, just went to church. I don't really,
Yeah.
maybe I wasn't that into it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can relate. Would you mind if I share with you a story about kind of what's happened in my life and how God's changed it?
Sure.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. As I mentioned, I went to a traditional church environment, went to church most weeks. By the time I got to be a junior in high school, my parents said to me, you know, I was complaining about going to church and they were getting tired of making me go. And they said, if you don't want to go, you don't have to go. So I was like, well, I'm not going. And, I kind of did what most high school kids and then went on to college and did what most college kids did and just kind of lived a normal, good kid, but yet party life and pretty absent of God. I started in real estate, John, right after I got out of college, and I spent some, 11 years doing that actually. But in the midst of starting that career, I met my wife, and actually things were going pretty good, and she kind of settled me down a little bit. But I had two things going on in my life, John. Is one, I didn't really know what my purpose was, and even though things were actually going okay from a career perspective, it actually made me wonder more because I'm like, okay, I bought a car, I had a house at the time. Those are some aspirations that you have. And although I fulfilled those aspirations, I'm like, is this all that life is about? There's got to be more to it than this. And I also had a fear of dying. I was very afraid of dying, and I used to think about being put in a casket in the ground, kind of dead but yet alive, and it was a scary thought for me. So then, my wife and I, we said we're going to have kids one day, so we probably should take them to church, and we better start going ahead of time. So we said, well, we'll start going to church, and we said, well, what we did before didn't really work for us. We'll try something else, and we stumbled upon a really good church. And after going there for a period of time, some people came over and visited our home. And that night, John, in October of 1996, they shared with my wife and I the gospel in a way that I never understood it before. And both my wife and I believed, and our lives were changed. I mean, John, really, really changed. I went from fearing death to now having a real peace about where I was going to go when I died, and feeling an assurance about heaven. And I also got purpose in my life. In fact, just talking to you, being with people and trying to encourage them in their faith, I believe is one of the greatest things that I can do. And that helps bring meaning to my life. Do you mind if I ask a question to you, John?
Sure.
If you were to die today, in theory, Lord willing, that's not going to happen, but if you were to die today and you were to stand before God, and He were to say to you, John, why should I let you into my heaven? What do you think you'd say to Him?
I think He let me in. I believe in God, and I lived a pretty good life,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay. So what do you think, John, the general entrance requirements are? How does one get into heaven?
I'm not really that sure.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, that's an honest answer. I appreciate you answering honestly. So, hey, you remember the story I just shared with you about my life? You mind if I share with you what I came to understand that night when those people came over? Because it really helped me, and I'd like to have an opportunity to try to share it with you.
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for letting me share. John, what do you think of when you think of sin?
I think of like murder and stealing
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. I can relate to that too. And those are clearly sins, and I think of those things when I think of sin too. But there's a lot of other ways we can sin too. We could be angry, we could be unforgiving, breaking the law, even speeding. Could be a sin saying the Lord's name in vain. For guys and maybe even ladies, lust is a sin. There's really a lot of ways when you start thinking about it, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if we got it down, John, to say 3 or even 1 sin a day, we only sin once a day, do you think that would be pretty good?
Yeah, that, be better than before, yeah.
Probably. I think that'd be pretty good too, only 1 sin a day.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because I did the math on this one time, and if you lived to 82 and you sinned 1 time a day, that would be 30,000 sins. That's a lot of sins. If we were to go before a judge with 30,000 violations of the law, that wouldn't be a good thing, would it?
No.
No, I don't think so either. And in fact, the Bible basically says the same thing. It says, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God." That all of us are sinners. And after what we just talked about, I think we both agree, huh?
Yeah.
But that creates a problem, John. For me too. It creates a problem because the Bible also says that the wages of sin is death. That the payment, in a sense, a wage, what we receive for our sin, is death or separation from God. That doesn't sound too good. But what's interesting is the Bible also says that God is love. God is love. It says that multiple times. So, if we set this up, that doesn't really make sense in a way. And if we all sin, and our sin separates us from God, but God is a loving God, why would God want to be separated from his people? Because if we've all sinned and sin separates us from God, then we'd all be separated. That wouldn't make sense, would it?
No.
Well, it doesn't really make sense, and that's why, for all of history, God made a way to bring us back into relationship with him through sacrifice.